We are all on a journey, and in this episode of Journey Journals, I'm joined by Henry Ngoni Chigama, who is a visionary, social entrepreneur, a speaker, the founder and CEO of the Eat Out movement, which serves as an awareness platform for homelessness issues and as a networking platform where companies can collaborate their corporate social responsibility and leadership engagements to mobilize resources and funds towards fighting homelessness. The initiative also brings together people from different walks and stages of life, with the sole purpose being to reach out to the homeless, restore hope, dignity, and through gestures, however big or seemingly small, work together to end extreme homelessness. Henry himself at one point experienced the real issues of homelessness and now passionately runs with the vision to help those who are facing the challenges of this plight. Welcome to this episode of Journey Journals. I'm joined today by Ngoni, Henry Chigama. Welcome, Ngoni.
Thank you so much, Linda.
Maybe can you tell us a bit about your experience that has led you to do what you're doing right now?
Okay. I'll say in 2016, I found myself homeless. I found myself sleeping in the car, sleeping in basements, in churches, at garages, due to bad decision making. That was one, and also I think it was an unforeseen circumstance that happened, and I lost everything that I had in my life, and I had nothing.
Where was
absolutely
this?
I was in South Africa.
Okay.
Yes, I wanted to start a new company, and then I made a decision to just leave my job without really knowing what was going to happen, and unfortunately the company did not do well quick enough for me to keep on having what I had, and I lost everything that I had.
So where were you out on the streets, as in sleeping on the streets?
Well, I would say at times I would sleep in the car because that was the only thing that I was left with, and then but the bigger part of the time I was sleeping in basements, and I was fortunate enough to have access to a building which had an abandoned floor, which I then just took advantage of. I was friends with the security guards there, so they would just allow me to go in and sleep, but that was it. Not really sleeping on the street. I never slept on in the actual street. Yeah. Yeah.
So how did that experience then lead you into the space you now are in?
Okay. I was one of those people who used to think that homeless people are lazy. So when I became homeless myself, I decided to start conversations, making friendship with homeless people and understand their stories, because I thought if I had my story and I'm sleeping in basements, I'm sleeping at garages, well, maybe these guys probably they even have worse stories than mine. That's when I befriended a lot of homeless people around Central Joburg area, Bloemfontein area, and I would ask them what happened. Why are you on the streets? It really broke my heart. Most of the stories that I would hear, and then I realized that anyone can be homeless. You can be there at the top today, and tomorrow anything can happen. You can find yourself with nothing. So that with that, it inspired me, to want to create a platform where homeless people share their stories, share their aspirations, share the kind of things that they would want to do. And me as someone who wanted to be an entrepreneur, I believed I would be a CEO one day, and with that I thought, why don't I get people that are already CEOs, to mix and mingle and listen to homeless, stories from people living in the streets, and it's always a better thing for you, as a human being, or to listen firsthand, than what most CEOs would do. They didn't know about homeless. They knew about homeless people, but they never spoke to homeless people. They would just hear stories through their marketing, people or project managers, but them themselves, they would not go down, onto the streets and talk to them.
For most people, they can't relate
exactly
that kind of experience, right?
Yeah.
So when you say, okay, when we talk about homelessness, maybe we need to come back to the question of what is a home?
Well, I think a home, first of all, has to be a shelter, has to be there. There has to be clean water, there has to be food, there has to be energy, and there has to be love. You understand? So that's the setup of a home. When you say you are at a home, you need to know that you bath well, you drink clean water, you'll have 2-3 meals a day, and you have loving people around you, with electricity, that's energy or whatever it is, solar or whatever. And for me, that's a home. So if your home setup doesn't have, especially the critical and security, I think that's one of the things. You need to feel secure. If your home does not have any of these things, it's actually we are starting to call you a bit of a homeless person.
Really?
There. Really, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we can remove love, because for some it's always some, they choose not to have people around them. But the other 4 characteristics, we cannot remove them. We cannot remove them.
Okay. So the movement that you've started is called the Eat Out movement.
Yes, the Eat Out movement.
Why that name? Because when I first heard Eat Out movement, I thought it was a day where people would go and eat out, like just to encourage people to go out more. But Eat Out movement is actually a different kind of eat out, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, it's the Eat Out movement. The funny thing is, when I started this initiative, I started it in South Africa under the name Chow for Change, which means eating for change. When I was thinking around getting CEOs to meet with homeless people, I thought just to group homeless people and group CEOs and say, talk, discuss, about your situation with our leaders here. It was not going to work, because we needed an icebreaker. We needed something that will really relax the environment. That's when I thought, but why not I create a pop-up restaurant. We put it on the streets, and we get the CEOs to be chefs, to be the waiters, and to handle the food, and be giving it to the homeless, to the homeless people. In that way, a meal is always something that makes the environment relaxed. So even most people that go for business meetings these days, they prefer to go over lunch.
Yes.
Why over lunch? Because there is always an icebreaker. Food is a common thing, which whether you are homeless or not, you want food, you have to eat food. So it relaxes the environment. So that's why that's when I decided, no, we need to create a lunch. And then CEOs will come and feed the homeless people, and during that process of feeding them, and they get to us to talk and listen and ask questions and all. That's why we called it Chow for Change. That was the initial
Chow meaning food.
Chow, yes, food chow, to eat for change. And then when I came to Zimbabwe, because of the political space, we couldn't call it Chow for Change. You know how our economy is polarized politically.
Yeah.
So we thought we changed it to say, no, we can call ourselves Eat Out movement.
Yeah.
But it's not just about eating, it's about we're trying to solve an entire person's problem, someone who's on the street. So eating is just a small
It's like
component.
you're being
Yes.
united through food.
Yes.
I know in Shona we have a saying, "Ukama igasha,
Unozazwane nekujika," you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but then when we're looking at homeless people, okay, so you've got the movement
Yes.
that is aimed at feeding people. Is it like, how often do you do it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Under the Eat Out, we have got quite a number of initiatives that are running through. And maybe just to correct you, it's not just about feeding.
Okay.
It's about feeding, clothing them, making sure they get identity documents. It's making sure that they get medical assistance, health-wise. It's to make sure that they are rehabilitated, which is drugs. There are some with mental illnesses. And our ultimate goal is to make sure that we don't have them on the streets, and through empowering them, with skills, jobs, and in the future, if we are able to build houses for them, we would surely do that. They have done it in other countries where they built, homes for homeless people. So that's what the movement is about. It's educating them, all of those things. And eating is just a starting point. So we've got the CEO Eat Out, which we launched this previous year, which is going to be an annual fundraiser. It is a fundraiser.
So so when you say annual, you mean it's once a year that you get to feed the people.
Not to get to feed the people, but where we get to do the Eat Out event. But we'll be doing different smaller events during the course of the year.
Okay.
And in 2019, as we grow, we also hope to do the Eat Out event a bit more, and in various places, not just in Harare. For now we are just doing it in Harare, and it's going to be once a year. And then we have the CEO warm up, which is going to be our pre-winter event. And we are also going to feed homeless people there. And through some of the resources that we get as well in our fundraisers, we then partner some of some organizations that are doing weekly feeding schemes or daily feeding schemes. We help to capacitate them as well.
Okay.
Those, yes.
I like what you said when you said at the beginning. You said that anyone can become homeless. We never really think of it that way. So when we are talking about homeless people, it's not them and us. It's we are just one, Ubuntu, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so I love what this is about: feeding, reaching out, and creating a platform where they can share their stories and feel that they are connected to the rest of society. But so how are you planning as an organization on getting people off the streets? Is there a plan? Is there already a plan to say, what, we'll feed you, but we won't just feed you. We're going to train you. We're going to maybe talk to the governments or the authorities, make sure that there are no people living on the streets. Is there a plan like that is already?
Yes. Well, in every vision, there are, your short-term, your medium, term goals, and then the longer-term goals. Maybe I'll start with the longer-term vision. The longer-term vision is for us to be able to build an institution which will have all aspects, of fighting homelessness. When I mean all aspects is we get a homeless person from the street.
Yeah.
We take them, rehabilitate them, clean them off drugs, train them or teach them on grooming, for them to be able to clean after themselves well, and we then take that person and be able to train them in terms of skills. Most of these guys that are in the streets are not educated, most of them. but they are good at something, whether it's carpentry, whether it's building, whether it's baking, or whatever their passion is. We train them in that aspect, and once we start training them, we link them with companies, and so that when they finish their training going straight into a job. And during the process of them training, we would hope for them to stay at the institution, not for them to be coming from the streets, because you realize that why most of these guys that are coming from the streets these days, when you want to give them a job and you give them something to do, and but they are having to go back to sleep where they are sleeping every day, they'll go back to their drugs, and they'll end up through peer pressure not going to jobs again. So we want to take them off the streets and go and walk with them through the whole process whilst they're not staying in the streets, whilst they're staying in at the institution. That's the long-term vision, and also through partnerships and all for us to be able to build homes where we can say homeless people can go and stay.
And I was going to also say, with homelessness, I think when people are out on the street per se, there's also the issue of mental health, right? So we would need to have mental health practitioners also being involved with the Eat Out movement, right, to address the issues that would have led to the people being on the street.
Yes, and we've been fortunate enough that the idea has really been accepted and embraced by a lot of people of all levels, from CEOs to just ordinary guys who are coming from home. And we've had a lot of different medical practitioners, including mental health practitioners, who have come on board. And with that, we hope now to channel all those guys through the screening processes that we do, those we find with mental health issues, to channel them through to such practitioners or institutions that are dealing with mental health problems. And through our partners, through sponsorships and donations and all, we can then be able to fund if the institution cannot be able to take through the person is their way of giving back. Then we can then finance their rehabilitation, because mental health issues have a lot to do with people that are in the streets, because it's not an easy situation to be in.
Do you think that it is possible to have a society in which we have no homeless people at all?
I think it is possible. It is possible. It's not an easy task, but it is possible. When I grew up, I used to, when you look at our rural areas, for example, our rural areas have got a lot of Ubuntu. Now things have changed a little bit, but when we were growing up, you would barely find a homeless person. If you look at the rural setup, because we used to believe that a child is not a child for your family, but it's the child for the community. So when somebody goes through problems, the community used to assist. But now, I think because of how things have changed, it's a little bit different. But we need to grasp those values. If we grasp all those values, where when you see one person, on the streets, and try to reach out and find out why, and be able to assist, even if it's one person, it makes a difference. I believe it is possible. In other countries, they are almost going to, I know Australia is almost going to zero homelessness because of the way they have their social service structure, so I think it is possible.
So for the viewers that would want to help or partner with the Eat Out movement, maybe in cash or in kind, how can they get hold of you?
Okay, I'll give you my personal number. They can get hold of me on my personal number, which is 0779 599 873
Okay.
0779599873. If you're outside Zimbabwe, then you just put a plus 2637779 599-873, and they can get hold of us through our email, which is eatoutmore@gmail.com, eatoutmore@gmail.com, and we'll be launching our website as well pretty soon, which is going to be www.eatoutmovement.org.
And it's not just for CEOs, right?
It's not just for CEOs.
Anybody can come on board and help.
Anybody can.
Thank you very much, Henry. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. As part of Vanama initiative, I would like to just invite you to partner with the Eat Out movement. Help them in whatever way you can. If you can't help a homeless person directly, then at least partner with this organization. They will make sure that whatever you give goes to the homeless people. Thank you very much for joining us on this week's edition. Look forward to seeing you again.